Feeling capable is a huge amount of confidence. Feeling capable despite having so much anxiety and fear, knowing that you are still capable beyond that noise that is inside your brain, huge. It is huge. It has given me the ability to try things and do new things and say yes to opportunities despite feeling afraid.
Hello, beautiful, creative people, and welcome to the Keep Creating podcast presented by Soundstripe, a podcast created by creators for creators. Every episode, we seek out successful creatives who dedicate their lives to pursuing a creative trade or career. We ask them some questions and soak in all the truth their stories seep. Also, we can package it up and provide more creatives like you the inspiration, education, and tools to grow in your own unique pursuit to keep creating. I'm Joel Porter, and I'm excited for the opportunity to host this show and dialogue with our guests about what creativity looks like in their lives. So, without any more delay, thanks so much for listening, and let's get started. In the beloved novella and recent Netflix original, The Little Prince, the narrator and the little prince are sitting on top of a dune when the little prince says, "The stars are beautiful because of a flower that cannot be seen. What makes the desert beautiful is that somewhere it hides a well." Both of these statements stopped me in my tracks and made me wonder, what is it in us that we keep hidden? And what is it in us that we fear others will see? My guest today, Meera Lee Patel, is a self-taught writer and artist from the East Coast who now lives and works in Nashville. She is the author of My Friend Fear, Finding Magic in the Unknown, a beautiful meditation on fear and how it can help us become who we really are, if we let it. She's also the author of 2 journals, Made Out of Stars, a journal for self-realization, and Start Where You Are, a journal for self-exploration. Her writing has appeared in VOGUE India, Spirituality and Health, and Flow magazine, among others. Her clients include Anthropology, Chronicle Books, Food 52, Life is Good, and UNICEF. She has put so much thought and effort not only into her work, but also into the way she lives, and she was gracious enough to dive deep into her experiences with fear, creating a stable artistic career, and discovering how she saw herself when she was alone. The conversation you're about to listen to is vulnerable and beautiful. So sit back with your favorite warm beverage while we dive into some of the truth Meera has uncovered and created. Hello, everyone from Soundstripe and everyone from Story. We are here live at the Skirmahorn 2019 Story Convention, and I'm here with Meera.
Hi.
How are you doing today?
I am great.
Are you feeling the relief of
I am. My
having
goodness.
done your talk?
I feel very different than I did yesterday. Yeah.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Well, I was fortunate enough to be able to hear you speak yesterday. And it sounded like you have a really incredible story for how you got into the creative realm and a creative profession. It didn't seem like that was where you were being pointed or led.
Yeah.
Could you talk a little bit about how you have gotten to where you are today?
Sure. So I mentioned in my talk that I am the daughter of immigrants. My parents came over to the United States in their late 20s, which is younger than I am now. And I find it incredible that they didn't have to, but they chose to confront so many of their fears in starting over again in a new place where nobody looked like them. And they came each time alone, separately. And because of that, and because they had fought and sacrificed so much to build a life of stability, which is what was their priority, it always scared them to think of their children not being stable. And so I was always a creative child. My mother is very creative. My dad is an engineer and very creative in his own way. He uses his brain to solve problems.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, a huge amount of creativity. And so they always encouraged me to be creative. They always told me to do what made me happy. But they said, but also make sure you keep your job. They're very one foot in people.
So a little bit of hesitation when you told them you wanted to be a writer.
Caution.
Okay.
Yeah, caution. I wanted to go to art school, but I ended up going to school for English because writing seemed a little bit more stable than being a visual artist. And after I graduated, I began working at a technical publishing company, editing papers written by electrical engineers. So that is what I did. I published transactions and journals written by and for engineers. And it emptied me completely. I had nothing inside me. I felt like a robot.
That sounds like the closest thing to pencil pushing that a writer could do.
Yeah. I mean, to be editing equations, formulas,
Yeah.
papers on magnetics, it was important work, but it was not meaningful to me. And it did not feel reflective of what I had to offer the world. And, so I'm in this place where I want to be stable. Not only do I want to make my parents proud, but I also am very aware of what's on the other side of stability because they have shown me. And I was not interested in that life. I was not interested in being a starving artist. I didn't find it romantic. I had too much of my parents' pragmatic tendencies already instilled in me. And so I stayed at my job for 7 years. After the first year, I said, all right, I came home. I said, I have got to find out how to be who I am. How do I feel connected to myself when I feel so emptied by my job? And I was also aware that I'm not alone. This is most people.
Yeah.
Most people are doing what they have to do to pay the bills, to take care of their families. And it is not, work is never only about what you love. And that's a reality. And so it's not that I felt like, woe is me, but how can I feel like myself in my situation? And so I started drawing as a way to connect to myself again, to feel like me, to feel like a person, and not just a cog in a machine.
So what were some of the things that you were drawing? What was it what was your personality speaking in that moment?
So all of the work I have made so far has to do with mental health. And it began because I was simply trying to help myself. I was asking myself, if my job is not my identity and I am more of that, I am more than that. I am beyond that, then who am I? And the questions and the art that I was making was really a way for me to find myself again. So it was a lot of introspection.
Yeah.
It was I have a lot of work that has to do with water because that has been a great source of fear and a great source of peace. I grew up on the shore in New Jersey on the beach. And so I have had a very complicated relationship with water. It is something that I love and want to love, but it has also scared me for many different reasons. And so that element is in my work a lot. That freedom I turned to watercolors. But when I first started painting, I painted with watercolors because it is a medium that you do not have complete control over. And I wanted to learn how to let go a little bit.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So this beginning journey into some self-awareness and to reclaiming some identity, there was also this necessity to identify what you had to let go.
Yeah. What are the things that are no longer serving me? Resentment about my situation, maybe feeling like I'm being held back. How can I turn those feelings on their head? How can I see that I am lucky to have stable income?
Yeah.
How can I make this work for me? And so that was the beginning of me pursuing freelance writing and illustration. And I continued that path. It eventually turned into a full-time job. And then I had 2 full-time jobs. And I did that for 6 more years.
Wow.
And I worked all the time. I had tunnel vision. I had one goal in mind. That was to support myself as a working artist. And it was after almost 8 years of doing both that I finally left my job. And I was able to pursue a life as an artist.
Wow. So at that point, when you were able to leave your job, was there a set of criteria that you had established for yourself that was like, okay, once I hit this mark, was it like this major goal that was pinned on your wall and you looked at it every day? Or was it something that it was just like in a moment where I feel like this is a good point?
Yes.
There's enough momentum.
So it's interesting. What's interesting is that I am so afraid. I am such a fearful person. And so my goal was a very humble one. I had a very small salary at my job, and my goal was simply, when I'm making my salary from my art, I will leave. But when I reached that goal, I was too scared. And so that wasn't the goal anymore. Then the goal was more. Then the goal was like, maybe when I have consistent work coming in, maybe when I have this much savings. And the goal kept moving because my fear did not lessen. Meeting the goals did not lessen my fears, because my fear, what I talked about yesterday, was of the unknown, of all the things that I don't have the foresight to see, and asking myself, what if they come true? What if this safety net that I've built disappears?
Yeah.
What if it doesn't work out? What if I'm not good enough?
Well, as creatives, we all ask those questions. Everybody wrestles with some form of fear, some form of fear of the unknown, or fear of failure, or whatever it is. How is it that you, admittedly as a person who's afraid, and I think that is a sign of strength. That's not a sign of weakness by any point. I think that all of us need to get to that point. But how have you wrestled with, or coped with, or lived parallel with your fear and your like how have you continued to be creative with the total acknowledgement of that fear?
I think the best thing you could have said is what I'm doing, which is living in parallel to my fear. The times that I was the most unhappy and the most scared was when I was trying to not be afraid. And when I really pulled my fear closer to me and I tried to understand what it was telling me and what it was trying to teach me, I learned that it was showing me what was most important to me. What was I so afraid of going after because I valued it so much? And that gave me the strength to go after it. It gave me the strength to know, like, oh, have I failed before? Yes. And who am I now? I am better for having failed. I am better for having learned from my failures. And I am better for having cultivated the strength to continue. And when I saw that my fear was simply outlining the things that I held so dear and what was most valuable to me, it gave me the realization that worse than maybe failing at those things or not having them was not giving myself permission or the chance to try and cultivate them. And that kind of flipped a switch for me.
Yeah.
And I learned that fear was not trying to hold me back. It was trying to show me, like, hey, this is what's important to you. And that has given me the knowledge and the determination to try and work for what I value most.
Yeah.
And if I stumble along the way, that's all right. But not trying is not all right.
So once you have, it sounds like there was this moment where you recognized that fear was showing you something of value.
Yes.
From that point on, what were the steps that you took in order to prioritize or chase the thing of value that you sought? So, because I feel like, it's kind of like we're talking about this liminal space where you recognize it, but it's the no longer, it's the not yet. So in that moment where you're like, hey, I know that this is what's important to me.
Yeah.
What were your steps moving forward, or what did you do to propel yourself in the direction that you valued?
So I would say that my path up until that moment of when I quit my job and having these goals and meeting them and then being still too scared to take the leap, those were all steps. But for me, it culminated in this utter space of just being so tired of myself, tired of the story that I had told myself that I'm not supposed to do something because I'm afraid. And the tangible steps I took was that I wrote a book proposal about fear. I wanted to write a book about fear. I said, I know this emotion so well. I know the life that I've built around it. And I know that there are other people that feel like me, and I want to be able to help them. So I did a book proposal I sent it to my editor. I was given an offer to write this book. And that is what pushed me over the edge because I knew that if I wrote a whole book on how to be friends with your fear and I stayed in the same life because I was so scared, that's simply inauthentic.
Yeah.
How can I honestly speak about fear while keeping myself at bay? So I did everything all at once. I quit my job. I sublet my apartment in Brooklyn. I told myself, you are so afraid of traveling alone for so many reasons. A big one, that I am a small woman. And I traveled through the United States alone for a year. I went to cities where I didn't know anybody. And the first city was Miami, where I was just alone for 2 weeks in an unknown city. And I did a lot of writing during that time. And I did a lot of sitting with myself and who am I when nobody knows me? Who am I when there's nobody to tell me that I'm good at something or to support me and encourage me? Who am I when it's simply just me in a room with my own thoughts? And that can be a very scary thing. And I think most of us spend a lot of time avoiding being in that place. We're always on our phones. We can't wait in line without looking at them. We want to be surrounded by people. We have such a huge, intense fear of missing out.
Yeah.
So that was step one. And from there, I went to cities all over the States, and I reached out to people that I maybe only knew of through the internet. And I said, hey, I'm here. Do you want to get coffee? I put myself in places that I was always afraid to do so. And from there, from being that vulnerable, from saying, yes, I'm afraid of this, yes, I'm going to do it anyway, came so many amazing things. I came to Nashville for a month. I had written to a co-working space for artists, and I said, hey, do you think I can work from your studio for a month? And the owner said yes. So I said, okay, I guess I'm going to Nashville for a month. So I came here. I fell in love with everybody in the studio. I felt that I had really found my people. I met my husband the first week that I was here. We dated the month I was here. We continued dating long distance. And then I moved here 8 months later. We got married a year later. I wrote this whole book on fear. I published it to the world. I had, in a very short time, a whole new life. And more than that, I had discovered from that year of traveling alone, I really liked myself. I gave myself permission to find value in myself and to be the person that I always felt I was when I didn't put the boundaries of fear on myself. And I think that was the biggest gift that I could have given myself. And it has shaped my life onwards. I have the confidence to know that even though I am afraid, which I am every day, of very different things, small and big, that I am capable. Feeling capable is a huge amount of confidence. Feeling capable despite having so much anxiety and fear, knowing that you are still capable beyond that noise that is inside your brain, huge. It is huge. It has given me the ability to try things and do new things and say yes to opportunities despite feeling afraid. So that was a lot, but it was huge.
Absolutely. Do you have anything that you do daily that, from a routine perspective, that supports this mindset of confidence, of capability, of, positivity, of standing up to fear?
Yes. So I talk about a routine a lot, but I've only very recently implemented one and started strictly following it. And it has changed my world. I wake up very early. I do not look at my phone until 9 a.m. And I spend the first half hour outside on the porch meditating. I spend the second half hour inside working out. And then I write a list for my day. I have a bullet journal. And I have a very organized way of working. So I have a master spreadsheet with all the things, all my projects, big and small. and I make my list for the day, personal goals and professional, based on the sheet and based on what is good for my well-being. And then I work, and I have very structured time blocks for each thing that I'm doing that day. I try not to work after 5 or 6 p.m. It is very difficult, but I do try. And after 9 p.m., I don't look at my phone. I don't text. I don't do social media. And that 12-hour period of no phone, unbelievable. It's amazing. I read. I really like reading. It's one of my most favorite activities. I was on a podcast a couple weeks ago, and they said, "What do you do for fun?" And I said, "This is boring, but I love to read. I just want to be
as
alone."
a writer, I feel like that's
reading.
imperative.
And it's fun. That's my idea of fun.
Yeah. So, a couple follow-up questions to this.
Sure.
Do you feel like with your habits, having structured time blocks allows you to just dive into those moments? Like, what are the reasons that you do that?
I do that because I need to have more boundaries between my creativity and what people need from me. And when I say what people need from me, I mean all of the parts of running a business, of being a self-sustaining artist. That requires a lot of people. That includes interviews, meetings, phone calls, answering DMs, answering comments, being plugged into my community, without whom I would not have a job. But when I find myself doing more of that than producing the actual work. And so time blocking has given me time. It has given me permission to say, like, hey, I'm the most creative in the morning. So the morning before lunch, that is when I work. Afterwards comes the business aspects, comes the social media, comes the interaction.
Mm-hmm.
And I need that time. And I think a lot of creatives feel stuck between how can we protect our craft and how can we cultivate community? And both are equally important. And so time blocking has really allowed me to do that.
Getting to community now, because you just mentioned that. In building your community, have mentors played a huge role in that? Or is this more of like a collective of like-minded individuals working towards similar things?
My experience has always been so far that I would love to have a mentor, but I have not had that guidance too much. I am super self-taught, and that means self-taught as an artist and writer, but also self-taught as an entrepreneur. And somebody who I do consider a mentor and who I got very lucky becoming connected with is my literary agent, Lori Abkemeyer. She has been very supportive and very integral in me finding confidence and believing in the work I'm making. And she has allowed me to say no to things that I would have otherwise said yes to, simply out of the scarcity mindset or of believing that I am not good enough to have more. And so I do consider her a mentor, and I respect her guidance very much. And I'll say, well, in the last 1 or 2 years, I've begun connecting more with creatives, which is something that I've always wanted to do, but I feel I am very shy. I am introverted. Like all of us, I think I suffer from imposter syndrome. So I'm like, well, they're really great and they're really talented, but they don't need to be friends with me. And so I'm working on spending time in the community aspect more, building that and reaching out and letting people see me. And I do have a couple of very good creative friends that I rely on and that, I turn to for guidance, and they have been integral too.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're kind of your own mentor at times. I mean, if you're self-taught, you're the one who has to navigate, oh, this is good, this is bad.
Yeah.
You're not, I mean, a lot of the purpose of having a mentor is learning and bouncing off ideas and not failing where they have failed before.
Yes.
So do you have an example, since you are kind of your own mentor, of like a major failure of yours that you had to learn from and bounce back? And how did you do that?
I will say we touched on this a bit, but I do grapple with, could I have learned to believe in myself sooner? Could I have maybe said, no, I'm going to go to art school? Could I have said, hey, I reached my goal. I'm going to quit my job and take a chance on myself? And a lot of times I do feel like I have held myself back. And could I have gotten to where I am sooner? And maybe could I be somewhere else by now? And I spent a lot of time having this dialogue with myself. And in the end, I have decided that it is not fruitful. I am where I am because of my experiences. And it took how long it took for a lot of reasons, but mostly because I was learning along the way. And so I've done a lot of things that I say to people, don't do this, or I would not do it again. But if I'm genuinely asking myself, would I have worked for so long for free? Would I have taken on projects for exposure? Would I work with these huge clients because I have coveted them for so long when they have told me they do not have a budget and that them posting about me on social media is my payment? Would I do that again? And I tell myself no, but another part of me says yes. Because all of those things that I label as failures and as not knowing enough and as being naive, they have still brought me here. And I have in return built tenacity and resilience. And I have learned to take those failures in stride and to brush them off and to keep going. And I don't think that I would trade this determination and tenacity for not having experienced those failures.
Yeah. Hey friends, if you've tuned in before, this is the part of the show where I bring your attention to the amazing music featured on today's episode and give a quick shout out to the artist that created it. You can license today's song, House of Cards by Hale, by simply heading to soundstripe.com/keepcreating. There you'll find a custom playlist of all the songs we use on our podcast, made just to inspire you. Once again, just visit the URL soundstripe.com/keepcreating. One more thing, I just wanted to remind you to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast so we can continue our pursuit to providing as much value as we can for creatives just like you. All right, let's get back to the conversation and hear more from Meera. Throughout our entire conversation so far, I've been very impressed with the way that you talk to yourself. Like,
Thank you.
so much positive affirmation, and but also this sense of realness, also this sense of reality. Like, you know, it's not fluff. You do a very good job of saying what you mean, and it's in a very intentional way. And I feel like that's something for a younger community. It's becoming a lot harder because their versions of affirmation are much different than what you and I had grown up with.
Right.
With social media and with all the different influences that they're exposed to. What is a piece of advice that you would give a younger creative today?
To be honest, it's the same advice that I give myself and my friends because we're in our 30s and social media is a form of validation for us. It's hard for us to not feel like imposters every day while we're making our work and we put our heart into it and we see something out there that actually, that we determine isn't, you know, is that worth 20,000 likes? And meanwhile, we're here really trying to help people and nobody sees it. It can be very discouraging and it can make you feel like, is it worth it? And should I keep trying? And the rush you get when you have likes and DMs and comments and you feel seen, it is incredible and what allows many of us to have careers. And it is also extremely poisonous. And I've been having this conversation with a lot of peers this year. And we have learned how we seek validation through social media it is harming us. And something that I am practicing doing, which I would advise both people that are younger than me, people who are my age and people who are older, is to seek and find value off of the internet. We need to go a little bit old school. I have been working on, I told you, my 9 to 9 no phone. That is a result of this. That is finding joy outside of my phone, finding validation from the people who are actually in my life, who enjoy me, all of me, not just the parts that I share on social media, which is often just the nice photos and the accomplishments, who, hear me cry and who hear how discouraged I feel a lot of the time. Spending time with those people, nourishing those relationships, feeling gratitude for the fact that I have them. And the other thing that I am newly working on, which is awesome, is finding hobbies outside of my work. And it's hard because I like making things. And so when I make something new, like let's say I've become very interested in embroidery, how do my illustrations translate into stitch? But it's very quickly to be like, well, I'm going to Instagram this and show people. And I have learned to have more secrets, have more things that are just for me, that are not for eyes, because a lot of our work with social media now is about vulnerability and being exposed to the entire world. And I love that work and I will keep doing it. But I also need a place for home that is just for me. And so I'm working on having more secrets.
That hit really hard.
Yeah.
That is a very good piece of advice. I would love to talk about your work for a little bit. I have 3 of your books here, and I would love if you would just give us a very quick synopsis about what you've written and why you've written it. So
Absolutely.
We can start with this one.
Yes. So Start Where You Are was my first book and my first foray into publishing. And it is a journal for self-exploration. And it came from that moment of liminal space, that feeling stuck I was when I was at my job and I'm making this work and I'm thinking, I'm working so hard. It's been 8 years. Am I ever going to amount to anything? Am I ever going to get to that place that I want to be in? And you asked me earlier, what are the steps? And this book are the steps I've taken. So this book was a result of my own journey, and it was a result of Pinterest, because I saw on Pinterest that people loved pinning inspirational quotes. People love feeling inspired, but people do not love figuring out how to channel that inspiration into action. And so this book pairs what I think is a universally inspirational and motivational quote, applies to anybody, all walks of life, wherever you are. And it pairs it with an exercise to help you channel the sentiment of that quote into action. You feel so inspired when you read this sentence. Here's how to cultivate that into your life. Here's how to change your life one step at a time. And I am it has taken me so long. It will always take me so long. And that's okay. And I really believe in small incremental change. And so this book helps you make that change.
Okay.
Then there's Made Out of Stars, which is a journal for self-realization. And the format is similar. It is art paired with exercises. But the purpose of this is a lot more inward change. Start Where You Are focuses on changing your life, getting to where you want to go. Made Out of Stars focuses on changing who you are. And the purpose of this journal was for me to have everybody understand how connected they are to every other, I want to say being, but every other element on the earth, how connected you are to the sky, to the grass, to a stone, to a rabbit, to the person on the street, to your classmate, to your mother. I want people to realize that there is an invisible thread that goes through all of us, and that if you can see yourself in another person, you will love yourself more, you will love that other person more, and you will love the world that you live in a lot more.
All right. And then there is this one.
And My Friend Fear is a book that I wrote, and it is a guide to becoming friends with your fear. It is part memoir, part meditation, and part manual. So it talks about my story and how I have gone from living under my fear to living beside it. And it really hopes to help you do the same.
So what's next?
So next, I am working this fall on my last journal, which I hope to, it's going to focus on anxiety. which I think is a very applicable topic to so many of us. And it seems like even more. I'm hearing about so many children that have lots of anxiety that they carry with them to school each day. And so I'm hoping to make something of value, something that is useful in helping people manage their anxiety and working through it. So that's my current project.
So is there anywhere that we can follow along to
Yes,
learn more about this?
sure. So my website is meeralee.com, and I am on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Meera Lee Patel.
Now I have a couple fun ones. All right, we gotta dig into some fun topics here.
Okay.
One question that I always like to ask our guests is there a parable or a children's tale character or someone from a cartoon that you grew up watching, a Disney movie, doesn't matter what it is, someone from a children's story, a character that you identify with?
This one is very easy for me because I have it tattooed on me, and it is The Little Prince. And I identify with The Little Prince. And that book to me is to never stop imagining. I have the words, "One never knows," tattooed on me, along with the image of an elephant inside a boa constrictor. Because nothing is ever what it looks like from the outside. And you never, ever know what's going to happen. And so that is my reminder to always try, to always believe, and to always know that at any moment, everything can change.
That was quick.
Yeah.
You had that one ready.
Yeah.
That was locked
Got
in.
it on my arm.
Another question that I always like to ask is, what is a skill that you wish you were proficient at, and why?
I think I wish that I was better at letting go. I hold on to a lot. It can feed the more darker parts of me, such as resentment and anger. And it is something I am working on. The ability to let go, to move on, to,
Yeah.
yeah.
You said that you're working on it.
Yeah.
How are you working on that? Because I think that's somebody,
Sure.
especially in the creative, it's so easy
Yeah.
to look at somebody and have envy or
Yes.
jealousy for
Yes.
what they're doing.
Yes.
And that can just feed, or if somebody wrongs you within the creative industry, whether it's intentional or not, it can become a weight. What are the steps that you're taking to do that?
So for envy and jealousy, I have found it to be very helpful to think about, what do I love about what they're doing? What do I love about this person? And that helps me flip the script. It helps me realize that I'm really proud of them. And that is a much better way to feel than to feel envious. And for letting go, if I feel somebody has wronged me or something like that, I am learning to not take it personally and to understand that a person's actions are rarely about me. They're about them. And the same goes for me.
Yeah.
If I do something, if I am rude or mean to somebody, it is very rarely about that person, and it is always about how I am feeling.
That's great. That's just, I think that's something that everybody struggles with. And
It's hard.
yeah, I mean, we never want to be at fault. We want to be perfect.
Yes.
You
And we
know.
want everybody to like us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're just human. Brad Montague,
Yes.
yesterday we had him on, said, and this is something that he said last year. He said, we are just humans wanting to be loved.
Yes.
And that's it. Like at the root of everything, that's it. So I
Absolutely.
hear a lot of that in what you're saying. Okay, last question. It sounds like you do a lot of podcasts. It sounds like you talk to people,
Yeah.
And so I'm sure you get a myriad of questions and, you have to find answers for them or think on the spot. But what is one question that you wish that I would have asked you today?
That is a great question. And I will say that this was a very enjoyable podcast.
Well,
and I
thank you.
think you asked
Well,
great
thank
questions.
you for being on.
Yeah.
This is, I
I'm very
always
happy to
love
be
talking
here.
with and just hearing. I'm a student of this.
Yeah.
I just love to hear creative people who are pursuing it with such intent and like a genuine love for a certain craft.
Yeah.
And exploration, like those aspects. I'd love to hear their mindsets. And so we do, like all of us at Soundstripe here, we put a ton of effort into trying to dig into this idea of creativity.
Yes.
And you've come on here and done it so well. So thank you so
you.
much for spending some time with us.
Of course. I thought of my question.
Okay.
It is very typical me, but I wish you had asked, what would I be working on if I wasn't afraid?
Ooh. So what would you be working on if you weren't afraid?
I would be working on something very different than what I do, which is children's books.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. One day.
What's the story that you would tell to a child? The first book you'd write as a children's book author.
I want to write a book about what happens after we're gone.
Oh. Huh.
So it's a tough one for children, but I think that it's a story to be told.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Meera, thank you so much. Can you remind everybody who is listening where they can find you one more time?
Yes. You can find me online at www.meeralee.com and on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Meera Lee Patel.
Meera, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for
having me. It has
having
been an
me.
absolute pleasure.
Same. Thank you.
I want to thank Meera again for being on the show, and I hope she's encouraged you to befriend your fear and allow it to push you towards some positive changes in your life. Make sure to subscribe to our show so you don't miss future episodes, and help us build a healthy and collaborative community of creators by sharing this with someone who could use some words of inspiration today. And lastly, I want to thank our team here at Soundstripe for making this show possible. If you don't know who we are, Soundstripe is a subscription-based music licensing company that provides unlimited music to subscribers for all video and creative needs. If you need music for your podcasts or YouTube channel, your vlogs, your radio shows, your film, anything, go to soundstripe.com and learn more about our amazing library of music and sound effects. We also create and curate a ton of inspirational and educational material that's featured on our blog. With everything we do, our mission is to keep creatives creating. So once again, thank you all for joining us this week. I hope you tune in with us next time. And remember, no matter what, keep creating.